Hi everyone, welcome to the new video in this series Ichigai and his quest for Zen. So today we will be looking at this problem. Let's share a library among ourselves, codeArtifact. So let's jump right into the agenda. Uh, so starting with the talk, we will first look at the problem. So the problem with the current microservice architecture is that now the code has been segmented. It's a boon for us that we don't have to know the entire code and they don't conflict with each other, but the curse with also comes with them. The curse is that the code use has decreased and people rewrite the code multiple times. Now it's the common solution, it's an Asian solution that you create a library and then you use it in the different microservices so that people are not rewriting the code. Another is the restricted sharing. Now in your organization, if you are to share the contracts library, some your proprietary code, you won't push it to a public Maven repository, right? You will have to need to have some way of restricting it to your organization. So to solve this problem, we will use this code AWS codeArtifact, which is kind of an code repository for your jars. Instead it's like GitHub. Instead of code, you push the jars into it. So in this tutorial we will look at how to create a remote AWS codeArtifact repository first, then we will publish to it, and then we will use this library in another service, and we will also use it with Docker. So let's look at the diagram. Now if you would have noted in our this tutorial, gRPC tutorial, we had this app interface library. Now what we were doing was that we were publishing it to our local Maven repository, and we were using that same local Maven repository in our another service. Now what we want to do is that we want to publish this Maven this repository to our cloud repository, and we will use it from our cloud repository itself in our hello service. So to get started, first you will have to create your AWS account. If you already have an organization account, it's no problem for you, but if you don't have, you can use the free tier. So free tier has 2 GB of codeArtifact access for everyone. So once you have created your account, what you will do is that you will go to codeArtifact. Then you will create a domain for you. So a domain will be your organization name or something. So you will just say something like NGO Akshit or something, and you can create a domain. I have already created the domain for myself called Akshit. So I will go into this repository section. I will create a repository for myself. So how do you create a repository? You give your repository name. So if you are still math utils, so you will write some description, algos for my org, and you will do next. Now since it's and you will attach your previously created domain here. Now since I have already created we have already created this repository for ourselves. So this is the gRPC interface repository. It contains all the API contracts for gRPC and the auto-generated client and server. Now that we have created a repository for us, it's like a GitHub empty repository. We still haven't pushed anything to it. It's just a repository. Now we want to create a jar and publish to it. So we will go to our interface repository and let's open an editor here. Now we will have to make some changes in our build or Gradle, right? So how do we find those instructions? So since it's a proprietary codeArtifact is a proprietary framework, we will have very nice documentation here. So we will view the connection instructions. So let's select a package manager client. I'm using Gradle here. So there are two types of instructions. One is the pushing instructions. So when you want to publish the repository, and then you pulling instruction, you want to use that library. So let's go into publish first. So we will first set the export codeArtifact auth token, and then in our build.gradle file you will do this. We will copy paste this publishing thing. So I already copy pasted this thing, publishing thing, into my repository. Now in order to publish it, we will have to set this token. So let me go ahead and do the export. Now normally you will do the echo of this environment variable to make sure what has been set, but I won't print it here because it's a sensitive information. Now in order to do the publish thing, I already published the version 1.0.0, right? So I will publish 1.0.1 because you can't publish two jars with the same version. So let me change it to 1.0.1 and I will do gradle w publish. So now you will see that this jar has already been published to our repository. Let's check that if it's been received by the cloud repo or not. We'll go to our gRPC interface and you can see that it 1.1.0.1 and 1.0.0 both have been published. Now let's go ahead and use this library. So we will go to our gRPC directory. We will open the editor here. So in idea here, similar to the way that we had the publishing instructions, we can have the using instructions also. So we will look at the connection instructions. I am using the Gradle also here, and this is the pulling from repository. So the way that you had Maven local in your repositories, if you see, you had one Maven central for all your public repositories. You had Maven local for your using your local repositories. You will have another repository for using this AWS created your organization repository. So just copy paste this code to your repository and you are good to go. So let's see if we can build this or not. Again, we will set the export art token and let's do this gradle w build. And you can see the build is successful. So it pulled from the remote repository and it built it. So in this way you will be able to use a library, but we had one another thing in our agenda that we want to use how to use it with Docker, right? Because you will have to create this environment variable, you will have to set it and all. So we have done this thing in our Docker file. So let's look at it. To note that till now you will be able to use everything. These are the additional instructions. You will be able to use do your code up and running, but these are additional instructions for using it with Docker. So you will go to your Docker file. You will set up this argument codeArtifact or token, and you are setting this to your environment variable, because argument is something that you pass during your Docker run command, and environment is something that you use for your Docker file variable setting, environment variable setting. So it's taken this argument, it has set this to the environment variable, and we are using our normal gradle build command here. So we have exposed this 1990 port in the end. Let's go ahead and build it. So what we will do is that we will do build control docker build. Okay, so we have added this build arc. Okay, so you will be able to find these instructions in the readme.md also. So what we have done is that we are calling the build command of Docker, and we are specifying this build arc, and it's setting from our environment variable here. So we have already exported the environment variable with the AWS CLI command, and it's tagging it with gRPC server, and the dot specifies the pick the Docker file from the current directory. So let's go ahead and build it. So as you can see, the build was successful and the image has been built. Now once we have built the images, let's see if we are able to run it also or not. So let's go and run the docker run command. So we have already opened the port in our detached state, and we expose this port here. So let's go to our Postman with this localhost 1990 port using server reflection. We have this say hello. Let's try to invoke it with general example Akshit, and let's invoke it. So you can see that we are able to connect to the container inside Docker. So that was all for today. To summarize, we have created a library, we have published it to our remote repository, and now everyone can use it in a restricted way in our organization. So if the auth token will be invalid, you will get a 404 while trying to build it. You can use, we have done this for the contract sharing, but you can use it for any math library or other also. Okay, have a nice day, happy learning.